Hey everybody, this is Jordan Tremaine with All the Things, and I've got another book review for you today, and we are going to talk about this book, which is 1984. So, this book I listened to on audio. I don't know what the reading experience is like, but it was a very easy book to listen to. I listened to it while driving and walking around at night and stuff, like when I go on my nightly walks. And I think pretty simple book to get through. And it did. I had to listen to some stuff a couple of times, not because it was confusing, but I felt like there was some deeper meaning in there. Like sometimes you have to listen to a poem more than once so you can get like the different layers of the different meanings and stuff. But I really like this book, so let's get into it. I really don't like doing spoilers on my channel, so I try my best not to ruin the story, but at the same time give you a good idea of what was in it. And in the case of 1984, it's a science fiction novel. It has to do with a dystopian society, so that's basically where the society doesn't work, but it's like the book is kind of playing out the reasons why the society doesn't work. And Animal Farm is another book by George Orwell that goes over this, that I read a long time ago. But this book, I think, brings up a lot of things that I thought were really interesting and also kind of hit home, because I think when an author does a good job and the description or the way the story plays out has something to do with the personal human experience, it can really touch a person, especially if they've been through something similar. And I don't know, I got a lot out of this book. So, kind of the main premise of the book, there's all these dudes in this society in kind of the future, but you don't really know if it's the future because the people that run the society, they are like in control of information, and they heavily change and doctor and alter the historical records and the information available to people to suit their needs. So it's very hard to tell what's true and what's not true. And one of the things that's interesting in this book is called the thought police, or at least it's interesting to me. And there's this idea that the government wants to control how you think, or in this book they refer to the government as Big Brother. So have you ever heard that term, Big Brother is watching you? I really think that started with this book by George Orwell. I'm not sure, but at least it's very popular, and it is a heavy reference to this book nowadays. So this idea of Big Brother wants you to be like uniform with the rest of the society and to be controlled and to do as you're told, and thinking often causes problems with that. So Big Brother goes through great lengths to try and get people not to think, and then also to heavily police people and punish people when they do think. It goes into all these different ways that the government and the society try to create this place where you can't think, and that people don't want to think, and that thinking is something that doesn't really happen, and they try to change the way language works. They try to videotape everything and watch people all the time. They have all these ways where they've changed the dynamics with how different types of people, like with parents and kids, like they interact with each other, with neighbors and stuff. And they really try to craft this type of society where you can't have individualism, you can't have privacy, and that kind of stuff is risky behavior because it puts you at risk from having like thoughts that are not in line with what Big Brother wants you to have. So kind of that groundwork laid out. There's a main character, and he has thoughts, and he's trying to control them or whatnot, but then he meets this like girl, and they like fall in love and stuff and start breaking rules, and some stuff happens. I'm not going to get too much into it where it ruins the story, but I think it does a good idea of putting the main character in kind of every situation that you could be in the society that was interesting. I did think that the story got pushed along a little bit in order to make sure that there was enough time to like go over each different part of how somebody could end up in the society, and I think if you read the book you'll know what I'm talking about. But what was really interesting to me was the language that Orwell used to talk about the way that this society worked. He used words like crime stop, which he made up, doublethink, and that's another word. But these ideas that are really aimed at explaining the psyche of someone who is adverse to thinking, and like with crime stop, because thinking is a crime, like they call it thought crime in the book, Crime Stop is about stopping yourself from thinking. So mental techniques to when your mind is on the verge of thinking or when an idea is about to pop up, to stop it and to shove it down, and all these different ways of going over that. And then doublethink is a way to simultaneously hold two like conflicting ideas in your head, which can help you to not think, because even though it's called doublethink, sometimes when there's conflicting ideas or there's this idea, it makes you want to think to the next level and think to the like, oh, that's really interesting, but that means this and that means this. But they have these ways of mixing thoughts in ways that don't really make sense in order to keep themselves from having to think, because, oh, well, I would have to think about this, but it's taken care of by this piece of information which conflicts with this, and it's kind of this layer of craziness that the people run on. And looking through the eyes of the main character, it kind of exposes a lot of this as different than the way that, I guess, the way our author is trying to say that our society works today in real life, not in the book. It gives some interesting parallels to real life. It kind of opens the Pandora's box on some of the stuff that I think is going on in a very subtle way in today's society, and it helps give language to that and description to that. I really appreciate authors that can say stuff that may not be what is actually happening, but it gives language and it gives people an ability to come around an idea, which is the book, and talk about it, because now there's a story, now there's a model for us to build off of. And I think Orwell does a good job of creating a society that has enough parallels to reality, which is where we live, that it creates good conversation and can serve as a cautionary tale to say, hey, be careful about this stuff, because this may seem extreme because I'm writing into this book that's science fiction, but like stuff like this could happen. Stuff like this is happening in different places around the world, and here's possibly what it could look like if you take a moment to step back and kind of disengage from it and really see it for what it is. So this book made me think a lot. It while I was reading it, it kind of gave me chills a couple of times, because it seemed very similar to some stuff I'm seeing going on today in the world. It's not exactly the same, but similar, because the government is encouraging people through different ways to not think and just accept things, and then all of the implications of that, all the ramifications, what happens because people are not thinking. And even though this book was written a while ago, I think it's still relevant, because the idea of a dystopian society is always prevalent, in my opinion, because there's no such thing as a perfect society or a utopia. So every society in some way, shape, or form is a dystopia. And looking at this particular one that Orwell has crafted and given language to does help give a model in your mind and help have something to compare and contrast with what's going on in reality. So the book is 1984 by George Orwell. I'll show you the picture again. Whoa! And yeah, this is a good book. It's not a very long book. It does have a little bit of confusing elements to it because there's some made up words, and it's also an intellectual book about not thinking, so describing not thinking in an intellectual way, even that's a tongue twister, me talking about it. It can get a little bit confusing, but I think it's worth a read. I think this kind of book, when a lot of people read it, it helps us with the cautionary tale to avoid things like this, which I really hope don't happen. So I think if more people read it, we're less likely to fall into this hole of not thinking. And I think that's important. I think thinking is very good, and people should do it, even though it can be challenging at times. So I recommend this book. It's something that I think is one of like the classics, the kind of book you probably should read in high school, because it's on that list of books you should read or something like that. But the book is 1984. Check it out. Ask your friends to read it. A lot of the books that I do reviews of on this channel, I think work better when multiple people read them, and then you get to have a conversation about them, because these ideas, like when you talk them out and you wrestle with it with different people, I think you can get a lot more fruit in your mind and have a lot more benefits from the book when you have conversation. So this book I would recommend reading it with more than one person, even if it's just two people. But 1984 I think is a good book. I recommend it. I think you should go read it. Audio book, regular book, whatever kind of book, just read a book. Anyways, this has been Jordan Tremaine with All the Things, and catch you later.